All right. So first of all, thank you so much for being here. My name is Anthony Wilson, and if you live here in Winthrop, I am your town manager. And I think we've got a nice crowd tonight. It's interesting to me. We've got a lot more moms here than dads. I'm not sure what that says, but it says something for sure. So what I'd like to do before we sort of turn this forum over to you, because our vice chair for the town council, Aaron White, who is also the council liaison to our recreation committee, we're here mainly to listen to you and to respond to any questions that you have. But first, I thought it might be helpful if you understood or knew what we've been doing since the moment that Lonnie Steeves, who has served this community very well for 42 years as the director of the Winthrop Area YMCA, what we've been doing since he announced his retirement, where we are today, and sort of where we hope to be at some point in the future. I heard someone the other night say, you can't build it if first you don't dream it. And so you have free permission just to dream about anything that you might like to see that's recreation related in our community moving forward. So as I said, Lonnie announced his retirement a few months ago. And of course, for those of you who don't know, Lonnie is not a town employee. He works for the Y Camp of Maine, which is located here in Winthrop. And the Winthrop Area YMCA was essentially a one-man band. It was Lonnie, which is sort of an offshoot of the Y Camp. And so as soon as Lonnie announced that, actually even before Lonnie announced it, I was engaged in discussions with the director of the Y Camp to see how they might like to remain involved in our community when it comes to recreation. And so they did a lot of soul searching internally. And what I'm told is that after a lot of discussions internally and with their board, the Y Camp decided it wanted to refocus on its core mission, which is the camp itself, which I perfectly understand. And I'm really grateful that Jeff Gleason, who's the executive director there, reached out to his counterpart at the Kennebec Valley YMCA to see if they might be interested in sort of filling the void. And one thing I failed to mention when we started talking with Jeff is that, of course, we've got the Y ran the after-school program here at the grade school. It ran our summer recreation program, and it ran our youth sports, which is all great. Sort of, if I were to dream, I would like to see a recreation program that offers more programming to more people of all ages all throughout the year. And so we started those conversations with Jeff. So when they decided, you know what, we really just want to focus on the camp, and he introduced us to the Kennebec Valley YMCA, we started talking to them about those things. And they immediately expressed an interest in doing all three of those things: after-school program, youth sports, summer recreation program. And the summer recreation program is the only program that the town has been involved in, but just very tangentially. Like, we serve as the fiduciary agent for that program. We take care of all the finances for that program, which does involve a little bit of tax subsidized support from property taxes. All of the kids or the counselors or personnel who work for that program are technically town employees, but Lonnie is the person who manages those folks. So we really haven't been involved in youth sports or the after-school program at all, but there's obviously a need for those things. And so I started engaging with the Kennebec Valley YMCA just to see what they might be able to do, the voids that they might be able to fill. And so the first thing that we all agreed on that we needed to take care of first and foremost was the after-school program, because by this point we were in the summer, maybe late spring, early summer, and we're going to need the after-school program available beginning when school starts. So they started working with Lonnie. That after-school program involves a child care license, and the Kennebec Valley YMCA got the license. And so they are all set. They've hired some of the same people that have been running that program to manage that program starting in the fall when school starts. So we've got that locked down. The Y, the Kennebec Valley Y, which is based in Augusta, also has a great interest in continuing the summer recreation program, which I said is the only program that the town has been involved in the past. And so we fully expect that the Kennebec Valley Y will be running our summer programming beginning next summer, in the summer of 2027. We've still got some details that we're going to have to work out with them, but I'm fully confident that will happen. They want it to happen because, interestingly, the Kennebec Valley YMCA, Winthrop is within their service area. Like every YMCA has a service area. We're in their service area. They sort of ceded that to the Y Camp and to the Winthrop Area Y back 40-something years ago. And so they are interested in serving our community. So I feel really comfortable that we're going to end up in a good place with that next summer. And in fact, kids from our community are going to be able to access their Y Camp in Reed Field and do a lot of outdoor activities as part of that. So that's going to be good. So that left the youth sports component. And by the way, I should have mentioned this behind me will flicker on and off. This is all of this meeting is being captured. It's just this projector right here has a glitch on it, and I don't have a ladder tall enough right now to reboot the projector. So I'm sorry about that distraction. So youth sports. After studying it, the YMCA in Augusta decided that their help with the youth sports program really wasn't needed because they said, we've got such an excellent cadre of volunteers, parents, coaches here, that really all that program needs is someone to administer the registration, administer the scheduling of games and leagues and fields and facilities and so forth, and then to coordinate that army of volunteers who carry out the youth sports program. And so they suggested that could be done with a part-time employee and the right software. And so many of you know we've been advertising for a part-time recreation coordinator. We've gotten some really excellent candidates to date, and I'm just having trouble getting our interview panel to sort of like agree to a date when we can start meeting with those candidates. But we anticipate in short order, we're going to have someone hired who's going to take on those tasks I just mentioned, and is going to work up to 16 hours a week. We've also begun exploring different software that we can use in order to carry out that registration and that scheduling. We had a meeting yesterday with our website provider, which offers a module specific for recreation for those sort of activities. And they're going to do we did an initial conversation with them yesterday. We're going to do a demonstration with them on Tuesday. So that's good. The YMCA suggested that we use a software called Sports Engine. And so I've reached out to them, had an initial conversation with them, and we're scheduling a demo with them as well. So moving forward, that operation will become less paper heavy than what it's been in the past. All of the registrations will occur online. And ideally, we would like for a lot of the payments to occur online as well. That does typically come with some sort of fee. And so because we are a municipality, we have to offer another option that would not involve a fee. And so this lady over here is Deb Nichols. She is our town clerk and a lifelong Winthrop resident. And so we are going to accept payments here at the town office whenever you register for a recreation program, if you're wanting to pay by cash or check. The town office will be the only place that we will be accepting cash and check. So I know the practice in the past has been that people will hand Lonnie some cash or a check on the sideline of a soccer field, and that doesn't seem like the very best way to do business. And when we're dealing with the public's dollars, we've really got to have that buttoned up, and the best way to do that is to ensure that goes through our financial processes. And so that's how we're going to react moving forward. So hopefully we'll have a coordinator soon. We've already begun to do the fall registrations. Lonnie has graciously agreed to launch the registration program for fall soccer, for field hockey, and for the running club. And so we put out some information today on our website and our Facebook page about that. We have a press release about that over here. So if you want to grab one of those on your way out, it should have all the details about that. And so if you want to register your kid. Now, we're having to go in our financial systems and create some different fields, if you will, for accepting different types of payments for different sorts of things. That's going to take a little bit of time. So for those online payments, as soon as we get all those links set up, we're going to be announcing that to the community as well for people who want to pay online. If you want to pay at the town office, we are going to ask you to please bring a copy of your registration so that we can match the payment with the registration. So I don't think I'm missing anything at this point, but so I'm going to sit down and let you guys start talking. But first, I want to turn it over to Aaron because, like I said, our vision is that Winthrop will eventually have a recreation program that offers something to most everyone in our community throughout the year. One last thing I did fail is we're also spinning up a new recreation committee that has been defunct for many years now. We're seeking volunteers for that, and we actually have some committee applications over here as well. Those applications are also available on our website. And so if you're interested in helping and serving in an advisory capacity, making recommendations to the town council about what we should do with our recreation program, that'd be helpful. In fact, we have another council member, Shannon McDonald, here in the front row as well. So as I said, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron a little bit. I'm going to put this over here, and we're ready to listen to you guys.
All right. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I want this to be more of like a not so formal conversation. Some of this conversation may be between yourselves. So, this is kind of the opportunity to snowball thoughts and plans and ideas. Granted, right now, the most time-sensitive piece of the recreation program is the youth fall sports programming. So certainly give any opinions or thoughts about that as well. I'm not the expert. Anthony's not the expert. We're kind of going to be doing this together. And that's because that's what we need is community engagement to see, where we want to go with this. We're kind of making a foundation, and it's going to be up to the community to step forward and develop what type of programming we want to see moving forward, how intensive we want the town to be involved. Again, this is nothing that's really ever been budgeted before in the town. So we want to, keep that in mind as well moving forward. And then also I just wanted to reiterate that the recreational component to the town side of things is more than just the programming as well, right? We have fields, property, the building itself, the beaches. And just for example, one of the long-term issues that we've been trying to deal with is like the concrete pier down at the beach, right? So that's a part of that recreational component as well. So anyone that would be looking to join that committee would also be able to kind of help that progress as well. So that's where we're at with that. Trying to think what else. If you wanted to know like the numbers, the recreation budget year to date, I think right now, as we had it, is $142,050. Is that right?
That's about right. And it's important to note, mostly recreation fees, as I mentioned before, have covered those costs, but there is a little bit of tax subsidy that goes along with that.
So again, want this to be a productive conversation. And certainly, this is where, what we want to see. I can think back to my own experiences with Lonnie or the YMCA, doing youth ball back in the early 90s. In high school, I was fortunate enough to be friends with people whose parents were involved in town. So come 2010, I was drafted to be the recreation chair and almost only member for our comprehensive planning committee at that time. So I've been intimately familiar with the town side of the recreation now for more than a decade, and the lack of involvement within the community, mainly because Lonnie was just good at doing it. So we didn't need a lot of input. But now that time is past. So now we need the community to start to really think about where we want to move forward. I've heard lots of ideas over the last few months of doing lots of different programming and different ways of achieving it. But ultimately, we need a core group of people to really kind of come up with what they want to see. So whoever wants to start off, feel free to go up to the mic. I would probably just introduce yourself, and then we can start having a conversation. If we need more than one mic, there's some other mics up here too. So go for it.
Sure. Oh, great.
I didn't really think of icebreakers, so.
Hi, I'm Julie McFarland. I have an 8 and a 6-year-old. A couple of questions, and maybe you address it because they just called to tell me they were crying at home. I really like the idea that we'll be able to pay at the town office, and you mentioned being able to do it electronically through the potential website. Currently, when we pay things through the town, if we use electronic payments, we pay an additional fee. Is that fee going to be absorbed by the town for families, at least in this first year while we're getting the process going? Because that's not been something that families have had to pay for before.
That's a good question, and it's something that I asked when, as I said, we had a discussion with a software provider yesterday, and I asked about the fees, and it's 2.5%. And so I did calculate that. Lonnie told me the most expensive program that we have right now is $60, the registration fee, which equates to $1.50. And so if people want to avoid that, they can definitely come to the town office. You've suggested something that I hadn't considered before, is the possibility of just like waiving that fee the first year. And so, ultimately that'll be a council decision, but noted.
And that would be, you're talking about online?
Yes.
registrations Or using?
Well, anytime you use a credit card, there is a fee. Yes.
And then my second question was that I have a concern that I think 16 hours might not be enough, and who will oversee when that person says, I actually need to be doing more? Like with youth sports just coming around the corner, and they're going to be like up and running and working with the YMCA in this transition. But are we budgeting for that there are definitely busier times throughout the year where like registration and up and going, et cetera, is going to take more than 16 hours? And I want to support it at 40 hours. I think we have quite an expansive youth sport. You said if we can dream it, we should make it happen. And like you listed many things, and I want that for all of the students and families we have here in Winthrop and the surrounding communities that have always taken advantage of the Winthrop YMCA. So if you could share what the process would be for when that person will need to go over 16 hours. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question. And so you may ask yourself, well, how did you come up with 16 hours? And frankly, that was just an estimate that came from the Kennebec Valley YMCA. And Lonnie has told me that there may be, as you suggested, ma'am, there may be times when someone will need to work more. It'll be like the goal, he said, should be like 16 hours sort of as an average. As Aaron said, and as I mentioned earlier, we haven't been involved in this at all in the past. And so it's going to be a little bit of a learning process for us. And we may find out when we start budget process next year, like the budget has already been set. The new budget year began July 1. So the new budget has already been set. Next year, we may say, you know what, instead of 16, we need this number of hours. So we understand we may have to be flexible about that. A 40-hour-a-week person, if we grow a recreation program to the point that can be supported, then I feel, I won't speak for the council, but I'll feel comfortable to say that the council will give that all due consideration. And so ultimately, the recreation coordinator will be reporting to me. And if that person says, hey, man, I can't do this in 16 this week, I need 20, then I'm going to say, okay, so how are we going to absorb those costs? Well, again, we'll be relying mostly on registration fees. The town of Winthrop also has a healthy unassigned fund balance, and that is for unanticipated expenses. And so as we were working on this year's budget, we fully anticipated that the Kennebec Valley Y would be the one that would be administering this program. Didn't happen. And so that's exactly why that unassigned fund balance is there, is for unexpected expenses. And I do feel comfortable speaking for the council and saying they have told me in no uncertain terms, we got to make sure that youth sports happen here. And if that requires dipping into that fund balance, then I feel comfortable that's what we're going to do. Does that answer your question, ma'am? Okay.
Hi, I'm Tony Mercy. I'm an older sibling of a Winthrop student. My concerns with the future of Winthrop's youth sports are with our current school board. The duty of the school board is to serve their roles apolitically and without a personal agenda. Multiple members of the school board affiliate themselves and collaborate with political groups that actively conspire to restrict youth access to sports, specifically for transgender athletes, of which Winthrop has none. Alongside this, these same board members have created and advocated for restrictive, exclusionary policies, disregarding state law and the voices of numerous community members who spoke against said policies. The proposition and discussions of these policies, which are aimed towards transgender athletes, does nothing but alienate gender nonconforming and LGBTQ students who aren't participating in sports in the first place. At a previous school board meeting, Winthrop sports coaches confirmed that we have 0 transgender athletes. There is no evidence that transgender students in sports make any difference socially or athletically. This topic is being problematically driven by the members of the board who are taking advantage of their school board positions to facilitate furthering personal political agendas. I believe that the terms these problematic board members are serving must be reconsidered. I believe Winthrop as a community must band together with enough signatures to recall the members of the school board who are promoting discriminatory athletic policies, and I hope you'll listen to us. Winthrop deserves better than this. We deserve a school board that can fulfill its role and do its job. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that comment. So what I would say, and I don't think it's controversial, that I'm not pleased with how the school board has taken up with that issue. Youth sports, I don't think probably won't necessarily apply to that dramatic fashion. I mean, growing up, I played with co-ed. So in hockey, I had female counterparts that played right up through high school. So I don't think that's an issue. As long as I'm a counselor, I'll push back against any type of measures that would try to make it more of an issue when it's not an issue.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah. And if I can add to that. So I want to be clear, like the school has no role in youth sports other than allowing us to use their facilities, which is great. And then once kids graduate from youth sports and then they start playing, competitive sports in middle school and high school, then the school obviously has control over that. So we don't really, I mean, this program doesn't really intersect with the schools. And it, for what it's worth, I asked the schools if they might be interested in administering this, and they felt like they had enough to say grace over as it is. So again, we're happy to take it on.
Hi, Julie McFarland again. This was my first year as a volunteer coach doing softball. And I picked up things by watching other coaches. Like, for example, my son's t-ball coaches are here and they brought goldfish. And I was like, that's so smart. Kids need food. Our games are always at 6. However, what my team didn't have was a med kit. And I do believe that every team should have a med kit so that our coaches who are already volunteering their time aren't also bringing the Band-Aids that they need because they slipped under the fence and hurt their foot and that now it's bleeding. I didn't have that. And I just do feel like that would be something that the town will also need to consider, is that we have multiple teams for the multiple sports, that we need to have something. Even we might need to see if we can collaborate. I'm going to put you on the spot, Caitlin, with our school nurse, and just get even volunteer coaches might need to have basic first aid training in the sense of, it's a bodily fluid. I'm a teacher, so there's always that aspect. I know that, but I just would like to see some of those logistics about youth sports taken into consideration. That, like, yes, I'm volunteering and you want me, I'm watching over your kid, but I want a med kit. I want like the rec person to hand me a paper copy of the parents' names and their phone numbers, not something I'm just quickly like, gotta find that email where their stuff is. I want that stuff. I want that coming to me as a volunteer. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a reasonable request. And, And I will say, the software company that I spoke to today had some really cool communication tools as part of their package, where that you can, a coach can send messages to the parents via email, text, through the app, whatever the parent decides that they want to do. So I think that's going to help with the communication just among teams and between coaches and parents.
So I'll just reiterate. So looking at like first aid kits, maybe developing with the software participant profiles, medical issues on their own that we should know about or coaches should know about, emergency contacts, and first aid. I know back when I was on the ambulance service, I was reach community coordinator, which we had at the time, which would do that. And so I think that's something that they would still do. Yes.
That's a great idea. I hadn't considered that, but yeah, the ambulance service I think could be a good source for your request. So, and I should say for anyone who's online, if you would like to speak, if you'll just raise your digital hand on Zoom, we'll be happy to recognize you and ask you to unmute. So, any other? Oh, yes, please, ma'am. Yeah.
Damon, I just wanted to say, because I think I heard you say the position might be partially funded by registration fees. In the past, if kids can't pay, everyone gets to play. And I want to make sure that's still going to happen. And there's no awkwardness with like being like, oh, like it's easy to send Lonnie a quick email and be like, sorry, we can't pay, but we still really want my daughter to play or whatever it is. And just make sure everyone can play no matter what.
It's an excellent point, ma'am. Lonnie has told me about that and told me that they raise scholarship funds. And again, the software company that I talked to today has a place within that app where where people can donate towards something like a scholarship fund. And I think the town would be happy to sort of spearhead that effort to try to, and we will ensure that every kid that wants to play gets an opportunity to play. So in that regard, nothing is going to change.
Hello, guys. I'm Paige.
You know, pull that down?
Yeah.
There you go.
I do it at church and then they yell at me because it like makes noise. I'm on the library board of trustees here
Oh, yeah.
too.
Hi, Paige.
But I also have children who are 1, 3, 6, 7, and 9.
I'm gonna pray for you tonight.
They're with Dad. But I guess I have more questions about the position and what you've done. Like, have you reached out to communities of similar size who have a full rec department, like Oakland or Orono or Bridgeton, to see how they are running their departments? Like that 6,000 roughly.
Yeah. Fair question. We're in a little bit of a different boat, I think, because I've been the town manager for a little more than 3 years. And honestly, when I came here, I was a little surprised that Winthrop did not have a more robust recreation program. Because I came from the town of Belgrade, which is half our size. They have a beautiful recreation center there and a full complement of programming that runs most days for all ages throughout the year. And so I'm familiar with what a recreation director does, but I think we're sort of in a little bit of a different boat at this point because we're simply looking for someone who can administer the youth sports programs that we have right now. Now, that's not to say that's what that position will always be, because hopefully.
Well, but surely those towns would understand like the hours that would take, right? Or the SOPs for that position or the job description.
Yeah, perhaps. And so not in every community, it's not always the municipality that's running the youth sports.
No, but all of those ones, it is the municipality.
Okay.
So who wrote the job description for this person?
I did. I did it based on research that I did of other job descriptions, including those provided by the Maine Municipal Association.
Yeah.
I sought input from a couple of different people. And this is what we have at this point. That's not to say, again, that the job description will always be what it is right now. But we tried to cover all the bases as it relates to youth sports.
Who's training that person?
Well, I think we're going to be fortunate. We do have some people who have applied who do have a background in the field, and I think those are very strong candidates. And so, and it's sort of like if you were to hire a new library director, and especially someone like when Richard Fortin was hired 17 years ago, he had never been a library director before. When I was hired as a town manager 7 years ago in Belgrade, I'd never been a town manager before. So some of this stuff you sort of have to learn on your own.
Of course, but the job existed,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, but at the same time, you develop this professional network of mentors and peers that help you out with this. And I don't expect that this is going to be any different. And I think too, Lonnie has agreed to continue to be a resource to whomever it is that we hire. And as I mentioned before, we've got a great army of volunteers who I think are going to be helpful as well.
I just, with all due respect, you've said multiple times, we've never done this before. We have no idea what we're doing. And so it seems like maybe it's a good idea to reach out to people who have done this before and maybe who do know what they're doing to at least get some on the job experience, right? Like the boots on the ground. What does this look like? What are the hours? What is the training that they need? Where do they need to be? Who do they report to? Who backfills for them when they're not available to come? What if they start and they're out on short-term disability, right? All the things that you think about with all of your employees. But when it's such a small allotted time and there aren't, it doesn't sound like it's clear what they're doing other than register, yeah, they're going to register. Yeah, they're going to organize with the other towns what the games are. But then who covers that? And who do they report to? And who is there when they're sick and can't make it for the week that there's, youth sport activities? That's where my brain goes of how are we enacting this as a town? And aside from the hours, which I think most of us, I won't speak for everybody, but Julie kind of said it too, 16 hours seems very minimal for what the job lift is, regardless of what Kennebec Y is doing, right, with the other programs. If we want to build something bigger, starting at a very small hourly requirement, and I understand with that comes, benefits and other things that the town would have to fund and pay for. But I think we need a better, more clear, as citizens and as people with students, and kids in the sports, idea of what we're paying this person to do and what their role is going to be and how we came up with that role and how it's going to be realized, because that still remains a little unclear to me.
Yeah. So now I'm just going to say something real quick. Thanks, Paige, for coming up, by the way. This process here, which is why we're having this forum, right? And we need to develop the recreation committee. We need those individuals to come up and basically be the guides that are going to say, this is what this role needs. This is really just the minimum starting point to ensure that kids are going to be able to play this fall. So, there hasn't been a whole lot of time to really jump on board. When I look at comparison communities, I usually look at Holton, Oakland, Gardner, are usually pretty comparable as far as looking at programming and kind of their structure stuff. But honestly, if the committee gets together and the community says this needs to be a full-time position, that's what we'll probably do. But it's hard in the background, it's hard for me to hear from like this person, that person, this person, all three completely different ideas, and then say, well, this is the direction we're going to go. We need to hear that from you guys.
I don't know what we don't know either.
Yeah,
that's right.
Okay, that was the point.
Participate in the sports, but we don't run them.
Yeah, and that was the point I was going to make, Paige.
Yeah.
I'll make you only one guarantee. We're going to make mistakes. And we're going to learn from them.
It's saying we all went to third grade, but we don't know how to be a third grade teacher, right? Like they're not comparable things.
And I'm not suggesting that at all. Like I played sports all throughout my youth. I don't claim to know how to run a recreation program.
Right.
And so I'm going to ask for just like a little grace, because we're going to be learning this as we go along to some extent.
Of course, I think we should think twice as a town about reaching out to some other places that maybe have these programs in place.
Noted. It's a good suggestion. Yeah. Noted.
Absolutely.
Ma'am, if you'll come to the mic so that people online will be able to hear.
We have Another counselor on too.
Hi, Renee Hawley, and I'm a parent of three. I applied for the position. And so I was concerned about the hours too, and reached out to Lonnie, who's been doing it for 40 plus years. And he said 16 to 20 hours should be plenty. And I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but he told me he would still be working on scheduling. So that takes up a big chunk of time.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, so that's a
I
part.
think, yeah.
Again, we're all kind of doing, Lonnie hasn't like abandoned us, you know, he's more than willing to help. And, you know, at the same time, we don't want to lean too hard because he's retiring, okay, and we want to respect that. So, you know, moving forward, I think there will be lots of, you know, back and forths. We will reach out to people as needed. Whoever is in that position, you know, is going to have to get, you know, friendly with all the coaches, and the coaches, I'm sure, are going to have a lot of feedback. And again, you know, this is one component of a much larger department too, so.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
And, you know, our intention is like the scheduling is going to be done through our software because I think that's probably the better way to do it as opposed to having an Excel spreadsheet or a flow chart
Yeah.
or whatever. And what I've been told by others who have worked in this field is that, yeah, that's going to be a best practice for us.
One more question while I'm up here.
Certainly.
The building Lonnie has been working out of, do we know what's happening with that? And
Yes,
Can
so-
it become a youth center or?
Well, it is a town facility. And so we anticipate that the program coordinator is going to office there for whatever hours he or she will be working there at that office. It does host some programs. And so, but I think we probably, this actually will give us an opportunity to do some upkeep to that building to improve it too. And so whatever programming we can do in that building, we'll be seeking opportunities to do that.
Thank you.
Come on up. And while you're coming up, I'm just going to reiterate again for the committee people who are considering joining the committee that this would encompass, you know, this whole entire space down here, which is in transition between the sports complex and it's kind of where we meld together. And we have the old skate park area there. So there's things that we really want to be thinking about. How do we want to best utilize this space? You know, we've been fortunate enough for Nikki and Tavis to help out with that. But ultimately, we really need to come together and have a committee that can really start to look and say, how can we optimize the recreational facilities and properties?
My name's Amy Cordum. I'm a mom of 3 Winthrop students.
Ma'am, will you pull the microphone closer? You're kind of soft-spoken there.
Sorry,
Feel free. Don't be shy.
it's not my thing.
We're all
Right.
friends.
My questions, comments, I guess, would be focused on going forward in the future and how we as a community get the funding that this program needs. Is it going to be bond issues? Like you said, maybe improving the dock down at the waterfront. That's a safety hazard. In the wintertime, the basketball programs, if you want to use an open gym, many times there's fees associated with using a school facility gym. How are we going to cover those items? And what are some of your guys' ideas on how we can get those action items into a budget or act as a community going forward to make sure that those financial needs are met for our children?
Ma'am, can I turn the question around on you? What are your ideas for doing that?
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
I mean, there's amazing volunteers that are doing the work, like you've said, out in the fields, but, you know, parents are kind of strapped for cash.
Yeah.
So it needs to be a community effort, and you guys know more about, you know, getting grants or issuing bonds than I would. And
Yeah.
you can only ask parents so many times, like, you know, some parents can't afford to register their kids, and we want that to be covered, but, you know, putting it all on other parents, it's like, we can only do so much. I don't know.
I think a lot of that in the fees structures in the past have been based on the Winthrop area YMCA having to cover its own operating costs in that sense, right? We did not pay Lonnie. and the the state YMCA oversaw most of the finances when it came to that. So that would be something we would have to, I would think whoever's in that position would want to start thinking about. And then the Recreation Committee really start thinking about how can we provide those services at the lowest cost possible, if any cost. And then also they're going to have to coordinate with the school department and Joel Stoughton moving forward. So, I mean, there are certainly things to work out there. Who's going to be able to open the gym? Do we need to supervise? Are there things that we can initiate technology-wise down the line that let us do those things?
Yeah. And I will say, but before you have a chance to speak, ma'am, I will say that Joel Stoughton, our athletic director, has been a great partner throughout this, and he's definitely willing to work with us. And it's his belief that between middle and high school coaches and or volunteers that, people will have access to school facilities for athletic purposes. So I'm not terribly concerned about that. As to your question about budgeting, priorities get funded in the budget, right? And so if recreation becomes a priority of the community, that's what's going to get funded. And just spitballing here, but let's say we grow the program to the point where, maybe we do have a full-time person. I would anticipate that the funding of that would not be unlike our ambulance service, where the ambulance service generates a certain amount of revenue as a recreation program would, and then property taxes would help fund the difference between those revenues and what the total expenses are. As far as bond issues, like if we're ever going to build an honest to goodness recreation center or community center, it's going to require a bond issue. And those are really tough things for the council to have to weigh, because in addition to thinking about what the impact on the community would be, they also have to think about what the impact on the taxpayer would be. And it wouldn't just be a matter of building something, then you have to maintain it and pay the utilities and all the operating costs that go along with that as well. And so that's why Aaron and Shannon get paid the big bucks, right? Is to make those really tough decisions. But I think it's something that should be considered. And frankly, I think the community would be looking towards, and the council would be looking towards our recreation committee to make recommendations as to, if we should do that, what the timing of it would be, what would it look like? What would the physical facility actually be? What we would want to have happen in that? And so those are all sort of exciting propositions to think about, right? Yeah. So.
Hi, my name is Amelia Arnold. I am a mom of 3 in the community. I have 2 sons who are old enough to participate in rec and a daughter who will be in a couple years. And I just wanted to offer a few thoughts. So I hope you've looked at neighboring communities. So I know Paige Picard mentioned, some other comparable towns of sizes, but also like what's in this area, because I want to make sure that the town council is really keeping in mind, like the town employees, that many of us in this room and in Winthrop in general picked this area to raise our families because of what Winthrop offered, right? Like the school system, the opportunities to raise our kids in this place. And I want to make sure we're not losing sight of that, because we're hearing a lot about budgets and money. And I have been to plenty of town council and school board meetings to know there's never enough money to go around to do everything we want to do. We all know that. And I want to make sure we keep kind of coming back to that focus of not doing something is going to cost us a lot more money in the long run. If we don't have opportunities for our children in this community, you're not going to have families here, right? You're going to end up driving up your tax rates for other reasons because people aren't going to choose to live here. You need to be attracting young families. And so like the 16 hours seems low to me. I don't know. I'm not in rec, right? I could make a spreadsheet. I could do a schedule. I could process payments, but I don't know what goes on beyond that. And so getting to all of these points that have been brought up of like, who's this employee going to reach out for? What happens when we want to grow it? Is it the town council or the community going to be willing to fund that? And if our rec budget's $142,000 already, I guess I don't quite understand where all that money's going. And so maybe trying to I know we need a committee, but that feels like a lot of money already. And that's before we're administering any of these programs. So where are our core principles going? as it goes. And I run a business. I understand like the very real operating constraints and very real budget concerns, and we need to do this in a really thoughtful way. It feels like we're a little bit late in scrambling for fall sports. And I know, we probably should have started this conversation before. Hopefully it's an ongoing conversation to keep discussing. But again, I view this position as so much more than just like spreadsheets and scheduling, which is what 16 hours a week kind of feels like to me. So I hope we keep that in mind and really don't lose sight here of what makes Winthrop attract the families that live here. Because I think not focusing on this, and youth sports is a very important part of that. And I agree it's not the only part, but losing sight of that will really have some long-term harm on this community. You mentioned even like scheduling facilities for school purposes. I have done enough sports now to know like even that gets chaotic. And I'm not one of the basketball coaches, but there's only so many gyms and so many gym times. So who's going to be the one in charge of that you don't have in fields? Like with the weather this year, like who's going to be in charge of all that? Like you need someone who is able to handle that and handle it well. And what happens when that person's not available? You don't want coaches and teams fighting for these opportunities. So I just hope we're really focusing on the children, but the community, and not really costing us a lot more in the long run. Like remembering why we picked this town for our families.
And I'll reiterate, something that back again, when I was doing the last comprehensive plan there, I kind of seized on the part of the recreation mainly because I had to come up with something, right? We had to put something in the book. And so that's when we kind of came up with the idea of, okay, well, this would be a good opportunity to start to kind of advertise, right? For people to live here, right? That's where we got Winthrop Plays Outside or
Yeah.
Efterbirds. That's where that came from. And so, it was kind of disappointing that councils prior or shortly thereafter just didn't want to invest in that vision.
I mean,
Right, so
Winthrop
that-
plays outside, but if you don't give our kids opportunities to
Right.
play, they're going to cause
They're go-
problems.
that's
People are going
right.
to leave the area. It's going to be,
Exactly.
it's not going to be great. And
So
so
that's absolutely,
I think we got to take a little bit of the leap here and really invest.
I
And
agree.
as we talk about it, like I can do the math of what $22 an hour at 16 hours a week costs, right? And I have to imagine that a well-run rec program with opportunities, and I do echo what Kim Damon said, I would never want someone to be turned away for inability to pay. But like a well-run rec program with these opportunities should be able to mostly fund itself, but it may not on day one, right?
No, yeah,
Down
absolutely.
the road. And so,
Yep.
I think that's a great turnout, and we need to keep in mind like that. This is why we chose this community for our families.
Right. And we have a lot of natural resources that lend itself
Yeah.
to recreating, right? Not just sports, but
Yeah.
obviously the sports are important too. And so, I wholeheartedly agree with that. The reason why we kind of got into it late was, it wasn't a town function. We couldn't just jump in and say, yep, we're taking it over. We kind of had to be asked, to be quite honest with you. And there wasn't 100% sure, well, maybe the Camp YMCA will hire another Lonnie. And then they made their decision. And then they came back and then we said, well, what does the KVY want to do? And then they said, no, we're not going to do it. So we kind of got here out of everybody saying no. And that's kind of where we had to step in, because that way we didn't have to say, we're just going to take it over. So talking about the budget, we do have a line item budget here for you if you want to look at it too. I'll leave it up
And
front.
it's available online on our website as well.
Yeah.
And
I think
it's,
some of us in the room never even really thought we had a recreation budget, if we're being honest.
we do, we very much do. And there's notes and stuff. So but yeah,
It's going to change if Kids Club staff is no longer a town employee,
Well,
or will they be? They will.
let me speak just quickly to the budget. So you said $142,000 sounds like a lot of money. It's not. If you were to have a full-time employee, when you factor in both salary and benefits, that's probably going to be pushing like $100,000. And most of what is spent in the current budget is salaries. It's to pay the people who staff all of the summer programming. So that's probably,
Which in theory should be pretty cost neutral, right?
when you say cost neutral, what do
Because
you
they're
mean?
bringing in fees to cover the staff.
But to your point, in order to make the programs affordable to people, they don't charge 100% of the cost. And so it raises a good portion. I think it's like 70% of the cost, but not the full cost. And regardless, well, I'm unaware, and I've worked in communities with recreation programs. I'm unaware of any recreation program that fully pays for itself. And so there's going to be some impact to the taxpayer. And again, and I share your vision for wanting to have like a robust recreation program, right? But we have to start somewhere. And what we're doing right now is just ensuring that at a minimum right now, the level of service that the community has grown accustomed to doesn't change. And once we get that settled, then we can start hopefully layering on top of that with some other programming.
And so, just to give you some idea, like $4,000 is portable toilet contract, the porta potties, which I hate, by the way. I just want to put that out there. So there's that. We have paid the YMCA $17,500 for administrative fees. That's like, insuring and doing all of the bookkeeping. $10,000 was for land program staff. $28,000 is for the waterfront staff, kids club staff.
So the kids club it's sort of the summertime version of the after school program. It's a day camp for kids. And so again, that may be something that we won't be involved with in the future, depending upon our negotiations with the Kennebec Valley YMCA for next year's summer programming.
I hope that we are forward thinking enough that we're not just not going to take over things that make sense to take over as well. Like, I think it's great they stepped in the meantime, but if it makes sense to do it in Winthrop to fund a person, because I go to like the business side of who are all these people reporting to, and will this 16-hour-a-week person have people reporting to them?
Yeah, in previous, coaches, so the way it looks right now is that position will go to our chief administrator, which is Anthony. And then, under that, there's coaches, staffing. The KVYMCA is going to be doing the waterfront programming. So they would take the supervisory role there and stuff like that.
Yeah, and a lot of that programming in the summertime is athletic driven as well. Like there's all sorts of skills and drills camps.
Oh, my kids take part in that. So,
okay.
Right.
And so those are typically people who are already in the coaching profession. And so they sort of manage their own camp, if you will. As far as the after school program people and the kids club in the summertime, those have reported to Lonnie. Now, obviously with the Kennebec Valley YMCA taking over the after school program, those employees, and they're pretty much going to remain the same, are going to report to the Kennebec Valley Y, has someone who is specifically in charge of childcare programs for the Kennebec Valley Y. And so that's who that person will be reporting to. And of course, that person then reports to the executive director of the Kennebec Valley Y. It would be much the same with the summer programming, the counselors who currently will be working the kids program, same chain of command with that, assuming that the Kennebec Valley Y actually fills that role. And if they don't, then we'll figure out something to ensure that programming happens, because I understand that that's vital to working parents, right? Is to have a place for their kids to go during the day in the summertime.
Thank you.
It's Amy Griswold. I have 3 children in the schools and in the sports programs. Anthony, you indicated earlier this quote, if you want to build it, you need to dream it. And I do feel as though we're doing things sort of backwards. You talked a lot about the process to get here. I totally understand that there was a lot of conversations that needed to be had with a lot of people. However, I really wish that this forum and possibly the Recreation Committee had been sort of at the top of the list as to not put us in this sort of time constraint. I think even if we were using the KVYMCA to administer this work, having town community members on a committee to drive even that would have been incredibly important. And even to that point, like
if we had had a forum, I probably would have said, that's not where I would like to see the town go. I feel very, I feel that it's very important that our town dollars stay within our town. So sending them to the YMCA with no real understanding of how those are getting invested back into our own community didn't feel right with me. Having the fees go to the town where it can literally be recycled back into our community, that feels so much better. So again, I really wish that this conversation could have been had earlier, that we could have had this town forum, that we could have been building a rec committee to be making those decisions. I totally understand that's not where we are. We're on a time constraint now.
Can I just bug you 1 second right there?
Yeah.
So 6 months ago, I started soliciting for volunteers to join the committee and got 0 applications, 0. And I've been doing it for off and on now for 6 months, putting it out there. So that was some of the challenge, was trying to get, and really, quite frankly, the interest didn't happen until we started getting in a pinch. So I just want you to know the efforts were there, and I've tried. I know I'm the liaison, so I haven't had a committee to liaison. So that was frustrating on my part. But I do understand and get where you're coming from.
Yeah, I don't want to, put your efforts down in any sort of way, but would be interested to know how you made those correspondence. Obviously, there's a handful of people here that seem very interested and invested. So I think the other point that I want to make is that we were talking a lot about volunteers. And it sounds like you're talking about relying very heavily on volunteers. The people who are volunteering in so many areas. And I think a lot of people are a little volunteered out. I don't know if other people feel that way, but my concern with relying on volunteers is that it's really hard to have accountability. It's really hard for them to be in situations. I will say that there's been a handful of times that we in our community have had difficulties at sporting events with parents from other communities in causing issues. And we're asking volunteers to be the mediator or to be the liaison or to prevent other parents from their inappropriate behaviors. And I just don't think that we should be putting our volunteers in that sort of situation. And it's going to cause a lot of people to not want to volunteer. It's caused a lot of varsity coaches to leave their positions because the parents are unfortunately unable to handle themselves in adult manners. So 2 questions really. Number one, I just did want to clarify, because you did talk a little bit about the KVY running the summer camps. Is that specifically just the Kids Club summer camp program and not the sports programs?
You want me to answer each of your questions as you ask them, or?
Either way, sure.
Okay. So you're correct. So they would be running the Kids Club program during the summertime and swim lessons. They do the waterfront program.
Just for everybody, that's what, the football programming?
No. So that's your day camp, the Kids Club, and then all of the other sports camps would be coordinated between this coordinator and the coaches who run those camps.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. And then obviously the KVYMCA taking over the summer programming, the after-school clubs or the after-school care is the parents are going to be paying to the KVYMCA for those activities.
I believe that's correct.
Is the town of Winthrop supplementing any of that?
No.
Okay, thank you. So that is all I have. Thank you.
So if I can just speak to a couple of your points, Ms. Griswold. First about the volunteers. So we're not asking anything of the volunteers that they haven't been providing in the past. Like the administration of these youth sports programs has always been a one-person effort, and that's been Lonnie. There's only one paid I shouldn't say that. There's only one paid person who's been involved with these efforts, and otherwise it's been volunteer in nature. And so from that standpoint, I don't feel like we're asking any more of the volunteers. And part of this new coordinator's role is to help support and coordinate those volunteers. So hopefully, those folks will get some help. Have I made mistakes through this process? I am quite certain that I have. But I don't want this to sound defensive at all, but our conversations with the Kennebec Valley Y had led me to believe that they were really interested in taking this on, and they were going to take this on, and we were thankful for it. And the intention was all along to have community input and something like this, and maybe more than one of these conversations. And then when they said, no, we're out, then I was scrambling in order to ensure that we did something to ensure that we have youth sports this fall. And so apologies for not having this any sooner. The town manager, as you might imagine, has lots of responsibilities up until like late June. That was getting a $15 million budget passed, right? Occasionally he likes to, take a summer vacation here in Vacation Land. And while I was on vacation, our town planner quit. And so then as soon as I got back, I was scrambling in order to ensure that we had those services covered on an interim basis. God, that sounds like excuses, and I apologize for that. But I just, we are sincerely just trying to do the best that we can with whatever's in front of us right now.
And I would just ask for solutions too, right? Any issues that you can kind of think of, start trying to think of solutions that we can implement, because, I'm not going to do this on my own for sure. Anthony's not going to do it on his own. We need to kind of come up with it. We don't have the committee yet, so anything to really get us going in any direction would be extremely helpful. So think of that.
And Anthony, I appreciate what you said about the volunteers and not necessarily asking them to do any more than, but I feel, and again, Lonnie was a full-time employee, and he was, I think he was at every game I've ever, been to. And so asking someone who's 16 hours a week to be at every game that Winthrop has is just not realistic. So I do think that there's an extra element of not having sort of a dedicated person or a go-to person in those instances where parents might get a little unruly. So that was just my concern.
Yeah. And let me just say this. Even if we had a 40-hour-a-week person, expecting that person to be at every Little League game would be an impossibility. And I've said this to other people. We will not see the likes of Lonnie Steeves again. We're not going to have someone who's going to dedicate their entire adult life, to the sort of programming that we've had here for the last 40-something years. And so now we've got to find a new way to provide that programming and to run it. So. Sir, if you'll give us one moment, there's someone online who is wanting to speak. Jim, are you there?
I'm here.
You have the mic.
Great, thank you. I just kind of wanted to make the point in, I'm on the council, just as everybody knows, Jim Steele. Most of this stuff that Lonnie did help with, I think to your point, Anthony, he wasn't at every game. A lot of us volunteers, coaches, parents had to deal with, and I've done it more than once, had to deal with unruly spectators, parents that were there. And, obviously we don't call Lonnie because he's not going to enforce something, but if somebody's out of line, you can ask them to leave. And then if not, then by will, you can call the police and have them escorted. It's what we've done in the past. We used to run a March Madness basketball tournament. We ran all three gyms, which, obviously was kind of chaotic. And many times I had to step up as one of the directors to say, hey, you're out of line. This is a kid's game and you're going to have to leave. So I think we would never find somebody to fill that role, to your point, Anthony. So I think the volunteers and the coaches go through a lot of training, have a lot of care, and we've done things. I mean, I think we're probably on our heels a little bit on this one, and we're trying to bring up the game because I know Aaron's been out there trying to get a committee together so we can have this. And I do appreciate you guys putting this forum on so folks can weigh in on it and we can get the ball rolling.
Right. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Jason Burnham, Winthrop. I just want to kind of go back onto the hours for our director. I know right off the bat, we're just trying to get somebody in there right off, get them in 16 hours. You guys have a plan in place if we were to have more hours going forward. I could definitely see a lot more hours going into it. But my major question is going into the committee itself. When are we looking to start the committee? Like get it up and on, have its first meeting?
Good question. So I think to date, so we want 7 committee members. And in fact, at Monday's town council meeting, they're going to be considering roles and responsibilities of the recreation committee. So assuming that the council does approve those on Monday, and we've been advertising it for a couple of weeks now, then we'll start presenting the applications to them. And as soon as we get 7 members, I think that's when we ramp up and start having, I think, the sort of conversations that you're looking for.
My hope would be September.
September? Okay. Where are we looking at for applicants currently?
Well,
Total applicants that we have? Total number of.
are you talking about for the recreation?
For the
committee?
rec department?
Yeah,
Yes.
we have,
I'm sorry, not rec department, but rec committee.
yeah, we have 3 so far.
3 so far? Okay, so another 4 more and we'll be good.
Yeah, we'd be happy to have your help, Jason.
Oh, I definitely know you will. So I do have a lot more. I know it's more for the committee side of the house and going forward and actual solutions and hopefully good way forward for it also.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie McFarland. I would like the recreation coordinator to have a volunteer training program that goes beyond when I did the training to do softball. It was like, if a runner is going to second base, what play would we call this? And I want training for all of our volunteers that are like, this parent has gotten unruly. What should I go and do? What number could I have on a paper in my bag of stuff? Because again, phones go down, you're looking for the email, the app's not loading. It should be there. And I feel like as a volunteer, I didn't really get to see a lot of that, which is really helpful. And I have my teaching background to rely on. But when we do ask these volunteers to step up, we want them to feel prepared to deal with, hey, this emergency is going on. This is what we want you to do. It was just on my mind. I might let Julia step up behind me. Oh, yes, sorry, it's come to my attention now. Will there be multiple community forums like this one? Like, could we meet again at the beginning, like in between the fall and winter sports, and then again in between winter and spring? Or will that just be what we should do is come to the committee meetings? And are the committee meetings like all other committees where it's publicized, the agenda will be there, and it's going to be recorded?
So all good questions, Julie. And I have maybe a question for the crowd just about dealing with unruly people at youth sports. But yes, so I think, you know, and maybe the council liaison to the recreation committee will recommend to the committee that they have additional of these forms. But to your question, yeah. All committee meetings for the town of Winthrop are open to the public, and we typically always have a Zoom component to that as well. And there's a good way to know when those things are happening, and that is on our website, on the homepage. You can click on a button that says Notify Me, and you can sign up for agendas or news items or minutes or whatever from multiple committees or departments. So that's a good way to stay in touch. So my question about unruly people at youth sports. and I don't know how it's been done here in Winthrop compared to when my kids were in sports in another state. How much of that is handled by referees or umpires or so forth versus coaches and dealing with someone who's unruly? If someone can come to the mic. Okay, so typically so typically if someone's misbehaving at a game, then it is typically a coach that is dealing with that situation.
And I'll say, like, when we're dealing with our kids and all of the backgrounds and people who come to those events, we will encounter people who come there intoxicated or in a manner that's just not suitable to be there. And we are responsible for that group of children the same way I'm responsible for the group of children that come into my classroom. So, you know, if a parent like pops over to get concessions or had to run home because they forgot their hat, I think the volunteer training needs to be way more robust than it has been, that we do rely on these people. And I've only done it one time, but I saw things in other coaches and I'm like, yep, goldfish, Band-Aids. Good thing I brought an ice pack for some water because the kid didn't bring it. And those are just things I saw the other coaches do. It wasn't like, hey, you're coaching 6-year-olds. I teach high school. And they're going to forget things or they're going to insist on having their stuffy. And just, it would be nice just to make it just a little bit more robust. And who do I contact? And for example, even when we reported like a student had an accident, there was a Google form and that was really helpful. But the Google form had said soccer 2024 when I was coaching softball 2026. So I want the logistics to really be worked out on that end of like, I want all of our volunteers to feel extra prepared and know who they're going to contact. And, you know, the same way, it's like if someone had a medical emergency right now, it's like, nope, we're going to call 911. If we want that to be just as clear as it can be to anyone who volunteers, they're responsible for our children. We want them to feel safe and protected in those situations.
Those are very reasonable suggestions, Julie. Thank you.
Julia, I have 2 daughters in elementary school.
Come a little closer.
One question I think you answered. I know you had said that that if you go on the website for the notify me now, because I know several of the parents that are just on softball coaches, we were talking about like what's going to happen, what's happening to rec sports, and I'm on like the Citizens of Winthrop Facebook page. I didn't think to go look to see if there was a committee, but it's clearly was something that you wanted to put out there and haven't gotten a great response, which is surprising based on the response that's here. So just, I don't know if there's another way to announce it and now I'm going to go on the website and click the notify me now, but it's unfortunate because I think there is the support and it's like very different from probably what you were thinking in your head. Like nobody's stepping up to do this. Why are the community members not stepping up to do this? On the other side, I think a lot of community members didn't know there was an opportunity and thinking like what's going on, what's going to happen.
Yeah. So Julie, can I speak to that just very quickly? I would also encourage people to follow the Town of Winthrop's Facebook page. It's quite active. And for both the post that meant to get some applications for the program coordinator and for the recreation committee and for tonight's meeting and for the fall registration, we boosted all those posts so that it would reach a wider audience. So that might be a good avenue for folks as well.
Yeah. The other thing, just a comment, thinking about equipment for sports and where that is in the budget and if that's being budgeted for. I know, again, the softball girls, I coached the littlest group and with Julie, and the equipment was not sufficient. Julie went out and purchased some. We were told, it's the end of the year. It's not going to be, the Y is not going to be doing this again. We don't know who's going to be doing it. We didn't have proper catcher's equipment. It was flopping off of them. The coach had to be over there tying them. Like the elastics are this long around a 6-year-old kids. So just wondering where that is. And
yeah. So as I said, the budget for the current year, fiscal year that began July 1 has already been set. And so we will spend whatever revenues that we collect through recreation fees, and we're going to have to supplement it likely from the undesignated fund. And then next year we'll have a better idea of how much we need to budget for this programming. But part of the responsibility of the program coordinator as well is going to be in ensuring that the teams have the sort of equipment needs met that you just mentioned.
There may be budget items that we'll be able to go through and what's already present and move things around. So I would say that's a reasonable thing to consider. So it could be very well be money.
Good evening, everybody. Steve McDermott, undefeated T-ball coach.
No, nobody likes a braggart, Steve.
It's nice to see so many other undefeated T-ball coaches here as well. It's really, we're talking about something on a contracted timeline with lots of opportunities for missed details and opportunities to make the community better for our children and the families. And that's been brought up a couple of times. And I think the big picture that I'd like to draw us back to is that there's opportunity for better coordination across several opportunities, including how do we leverage all of the recreation activities within the community, like Aaron mentioned earlier, ranging from the beach and the waterfront to the Roger Garrett Trail, to the sports fields, to the schools. I think there's lots of questions on how do we create accessibility through this, whether it's limiting financial burden for families who might not be able to pay, but also I've lived here for 8 years. I'm not so sure how, if I wanted to have a kickball game, like who I would check with to see if a baseball game wasn't being scheduled at the high school to get people over there. So I think that this position has a big opportunity, and I understand that the order of operations right now is a focus on fall sports so that we can keep things running without interruption, but that opportunity ahead of us feels so much bigger to create real recreation opportunities for children, our older Mainers and neighbors, and for parents to be able to really just thrive and enjoy the community and everything that it has to offer, from, again, organized sports, unorganized sports, outdoor activities, walking or running the trails, and then enjoying the beach and getting rid of the old swim platform at some point in the next 20 years.
And then not only that, we have, property that hasn't been developed off of Rambler Road on the right that was set aside specifically for the town's recreation program. And also there's a softball field or old softball field next to the Public Works, which has also been designated and set aside and can only be used for recreational purposes. So, and then a lot of people don't know about the East Winthrop Beach, right? So there are lots of things that need to be spruced up and a lot of work that has to be done, which I look forward to hopefully everybody getting involved in doing.
Yeah, and if I can, Steve, I'd like to mention one other opportunity that's out there and that we haven't mentioned at all too, but we need to offer recreational activities for seniors. Like I see some grandparents in the audience here tonight. And fortunately, the Wayne Town Manager is here, and Wayne has a pretty robust program for seniors. And they've been very gracious about inviting Winthrop residents to participate in that, which I'm very happy about. But I think that's something that is a big gap in our recreation offerings in this community.
Yes. So I guess I would just encourage or hope that as you talk to the individuals who are interested in the committee, and maybe this will be the committee with the youngest cohort, but that we're not just looking at what we need to do for tomorrow, but how far out over the horizon can we be looking to ensure that recreation opportunities are vibrant and visible and accessible and draw working age families to the community and allow to reduce isolation for all of our neighbors through various activities. So, and encouraging the council to fund those as priorities. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Evening.
Paul Sanacandro from Greenwood Ave. Yes, just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to get involved a little bit tonight. And I noticed that the plan is very sports centric. And as a young fella, getting out there, getting into sports, we all understand how important they are for youth development, teamwork, building self-esteem, etc. Was involved myself as a kid. Time moved on, darn, I got bad knees. So I got involved in shooting sports, got out into the woods. I haven't heard anything about getting out on trails, trail development. I know that there's a conservation committee here in town. We have great resources up on Mount Pisgah. I understand that there's also an effort to create more trails. So wondering what type of interface the Recreation Committee might have with the Conservation Committee in kind of coming up with a larger, kind of a comprehensive plan as far as that goes, and integrating some of those needs for that type of recreation into things. Lakes, boat ramps, fishing. We've got it all here, you know, so what are your thoughts on that?
Here's my first thought. I'd love for you to submit an application to the Recreation Committee because I think you've raised some good points, and you could be an advocate for ensuring that the committee focuses on outdoor recreation, and I think it's an excellent idea to ensure that there's some synergy between the Conservation Commission and the Recreation Committee. So I think everything that you've said here tonight has value, and honestly, I would really love it if you would fill out an application and help us to realize some of the things that you've talked about tonight.
Well, thanks, Anthony. I might do that.
And I agree, you know, it's important, you know, obviously this is on everybody's mind as far as the sports goes, but yeah, you know, whether it's making an ice rink time or making sure we have groomed trails, cross-country skiing with snowmobiling. All things that should be encompassed in any discussions with recreation as far as the town is concerned.
And I will, this will be of interest to you, but the town currently is working on a request for proposals to create an open space plan. That plan is going to be grant funded in order to identify opportunities for trail connections. It's one of the reasons for the plan in our community. So it is, some of what you spoke about is on our radar.
That's great. Okay. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Just want to reiterate to anybody that's online, if they want to speak, just raise the hand, which should be, I think, on the
bottom.
A lot. I just have a lot of questions or thoughts, and this is the community forum, so I thought it was be a good spot. I was asked to ask about, I think we're dreaming it. You know, you've got a whole room full of people here, you've got people online, we're dreaming. Could you put it down as a town council? Like, reality is budget season's only like 5 months away. You know, we're going to start thinking about next year's budget pretty fast.
Julie, give me a break.
Sorry. It's budgets everywhere, budgets for schools, budgets. I think we need to just be saying, we want a full-time person in the 27, 28 fiscal year, and that we should just be getting that ball rolling because we're dreaming. We're hearing it. That's what I'm hearing. And then the question I was asked to ask about is that, you know, we know what the priority is right now. We know what we've budgeted for in that priority. But we do have a lot of resources in our trails and the water access that the recreation department that we are building should be looking at. Like, can the town be renting kayaks down at the beach? Can we be getting in revenue that way? And then my other question around revenue is that every time I check out somewhere, they're like, would you like to round up to whatever and support that? Is that something we can add as a line item here? Is like, when I come in to register my car, can you say, would you like to round up to the Richmond, sorry, that's where I work in Richmond. Would you like to round up to the Winthrop Recreation Department? Because you ask us as a parent, like, hey, could you donate more money, even though you just registered a kid and spent $200? Can you give us some more? Can we spread it out? Is there a way to say, hey, you just registered your car, would you like to spend another 28 cents and donate to some kid who's going to need that scholarship? Can
I'm
we do
sure
that?
we can solicit, can we?
Can we add that?
That's only because it's the municipality is looking.
Yeah. So we can definitely collect
into it.
donations. I don't know if we can do it as part of, like, say, a vehicle registration process.
Right.
But there are opportunities for people to contribute to specific things that are going on in our community. And again, our town clerk did.
Yeah, I have worked in communities that have done something similar to that. It's a lukewarm reception at best to be solicited. But if you are offering up a donation option at the, I don't know if I'd want to put it on the counter, but we could place it strategically throughout the town.
Even if we didn't ask it, if we had signs that says, hey, did you know that you can round up to donate to
Yeah.
the Winthrop Recreation Department and support all of our students and families?
Right, right. With tax dollars, we want to be very sensitive to that, though.
I
but it
do
would be an
understand that just
option.
as like a revenue of, a quarter here, a quarter there. I mean, every place we go, they're like, we raised thousands. I mean, when Hannaford does the Hannaford Help Schools, I picked up so many of the ones people left behind. I scanned thousands of dollars for the Winthrop grade school this year from the ones people left behind. So I just, as a potential, something to explore, I would like to see if there's that opportunity.
Yeah, we could talk to our finance director or probably something the auditors might know.
And Julie, again, one of the software companies that I've spoken to thus far, they have as part of their software opportunity to donate, whether it's to a scholarship fund or program.
Might be able to put a link there too. That's say if you are interested, you direct them to that site for donations too from people who are not participants.
Yeah.
There's ideas there.
Yeah. And ma'am, you are?
Aaron, Anthony, I'm Charlie Clark. I know most of the people here. I've had 3 daughters that went through the school system. They were 3 seasoned sports people and all summer and volunteered and all the way through. I've been a middle school track coach. I've assisted with the track and field and through high school, and also was softball coaches for the grade school kids for a number of years. And one thing I have to say is Winthrop has a wonderful volunteer base. There's people here I recognize who have put in a gazillion hours to make our programs work. I hear a lot of talk about getting paid for this and getting paid for that. And I mean, if your heart's really in it, you're going to be there to do it anyway. As far as disruptive people, tell them. If they don't like it, then you know who else you can call. And I'm there too.
Charlie works for the police department.
So, I mean, don't let them intimidate you. Make the sports what you want them to be for your children, because we've got, look at Winthrop. I mean, they're known throughout the state for most of our sports. And the other thing I wanted to mention too, and I think I put it in my application for the committee, we need to do more for the older people, the adults. And I'm a certified bocce instructor, but making a bocce court is really easy to do with PCP, whatever you call it, PVC pipe, and you line it and get a bocce kit. And it's a sport that any age can do. It doesn't have to be the people that are out here playing whatever you call that thing, the ball. What is it? Pickleball. Yeah, pickleball. It's much quieter too. But all you got to do is be able to roll a ball and see where it's going. And that could involve a number of people that aren't able to get out there and whack a ball back and forth. And it would be nice to be able to see more of them. I'm old, so I mean, I know. But I mean, if that's something that the town might be interested in, I'd be more than happy to help them out with learning how to do any of that. And I'm like I said, I'm at the police department. Come see me. But as far as all the other complaints and stuff, we're above that. We're bigger than that. So let's work it out and make it happen. Okay.
Thank you, Charlie, and thank you for applying for the committee. So Charlie is not only serving the community potentially in that sort of way, but she just recently also celebrated her 40th year of working at the police department. So amazing that 40 years ago they hired an 8-year-old, right?
Like I always say, I'm going to keep my mouth shut, and then I don't. But I had some ideas that I think are important before a committee gets underway, and some things that we could do with the software particularly, but to collect data. I'm not sure that anybody's been tracking data, right, of how many families participate or students in this the students who do youth sports or people accessing the trails or launching boats or putting, any of that.
And just the stuff that Lonnie would keep.
It,
He usually is pretty, but
Yeah,
not the other
some.
stuff, no.
it was very paper heavy, and I think the software will give us an opportunity to be able to track what participation is year over year.
Yeah, good. I was hoping we could get some, but that's a tiny part of the data, right?
Yeah.
And then as the interview committee gets going, imploring them to ensure this person has ability or experience in writing grants or finding grant money, organizing fundraising, or that's a potential committee or foundation or other arm, right leg of how we do fundraising, and doing a community needs assessment. It sounds like we really need a community needs assessment because we don't know what we even need. Like, who wants to access things and what do they want to do? Yeah, if you build it, they'll come, right, for part of it. But if we don't advertise it well and we don't have the equipment and all the things that everyone's saying, but if the person in this position can grow into more hours to handle more futuristic type of dreams that we have, they have to know how to do a community needs assessment. They have to know how to write for grants. We have to get some sort of fundraising going. It's not going to go far, right? Like, we know all these programs at the library, guys, do you know all the summer reading programs? That's mostly fundraised. So it's just, and we use QR codes, like, send your money through this QR code if you want to do this. Or at, what's he run? Trivia night, right? They send around a can, do summer reading program and support the efforts.
And you guys have snowshoes and stuff.
Well, I was going to say that's another way to get data, right? We can ask Richard, like, how many people are taking out snowshoes and how many people are taking out fishing poles? And what have they asked for that maybe we don't have, that we've borrowed from another library or that we've gotten from, that we've purchased to have there in our budget so that we can do those activities. There's some numbers. Richard's pretty good about tracking a bunch of data. So he's probably got some stuff there that we can pull from. And then, like you said, Wayne, right, we need to ask our neighboring communities what they're already offering. Maybe we have a consortium of sorts. We don't need to reinvent the wheel if a lot of our citizens are living closer to Wayne than they are maybe to East Winthrop. And so there's just a lot of ideas, but getting the correct candidate in that position feels of critical importance if it's something that we can grow.
Good evening. My name is Mike Griswold. I'm a resident here in Winthrop. I have 3 kids who are actively involved in our programs, and I really appreciate hearing what everybody has for feedback. I did have a few statements, but I apologize if there's some redundancies in there, but I'm just glad to hear that we're pretty aligned with what we want for our town. I realize that I wear a couple different hats here. I'm a Winthrop resident, I'm a parent, I'm a youth coach, and I also serve as the recreation director in Monmouth. More than anything, though, I'm here because I genuinely care about our community and what's best for our kids, our families, and what the future is for Winthrop recreation. And while I have education in this field, recreation's my degree, spent 5 years working with the KBY in Augusta. I work in municipal recreation. There's one thing that I've learned working in municipal recreation is that the department that we're envisioning is so much more than youth sports, even though that's what hits home for me as a coach. In Monmouth, which we know is a smaller community, my 32-hour-a-week position includes everything from budgeting, strategic planning, volunteer recruitment, facility management, partnerships, and developing programs that do reach all residents in all ages. And we have a very active senior age population. I'd like to throw that out. Also, part of that, because we're new in Monmouth, is that we have developed a recreation committee. That's in its full year. I created that, created the bylaws for it, also created the strategic vision for what our community wants in Monmouth. And that's not to go on with my resume. All I'm trying to say is it takes time. It takes a lot of time to build that from scratch. But the beauty is that we're not necessarily building from scratch here. We have a really strong foundation in which to work from. And that's why I am really glad that the Recreation Committee is a priority. In fact, I was on that Recreation Committee. It became defunct because that's when COVID hit. So I'd like to assure all the people who like conservation and trails, that was actively involved in what we did. We talked about connectors from Pisgah down to the Garrett Trail, making our trails accessible for snowshoeing, educating the community why it's important to have different grooming involved. So there's a lot of different efforts that were there. They were just halted at that time. And I think that that recreation committee that we're looking to develop is going to provide us with the perspectives that we need, the things that's going to represent all those different segments of the population that maybe we haven't had the chance to really tap into yet. And it's great that the KBY is going to take some of those buckets off of what that was on Lonnie's plate, right? Kids, after school kids care, which I used to run, it's a beast. It's an absolute beast. It's vital, but it is a big time-consuming thing that requires a lot of attention and care. And I'm happy that we have a resource that's going to provide that for the community. I do feel as though that with our direction, that whether a part-time role is what we want, and that's maybe we strive for more, or maybe there's another model. I just feel that there's a tremendous amount that's involved with building a successful recreation program. And it speaks to a lot of things that we've heard tonight, like what do coaches need? What is the facilities, right? We have people in this room are expensing out of their pocket to take care of our fields. We're mowing fields. Community partners are mowing fields. And that's no squash and volunteerism. That's just a service that I don't think always gets the highlight that it deserves. And I believe that with the town and the way in which we can move forward is I would love to see more support with that. Because again, those are the coaches doing that work too. They don't need to show up 2 hours before a game to line their field or mow the outfield. They got enough going on with 12. Like we said, we got an undefeated T-ball coach in here. They know that's a big enough task. So we got to support them. And I'm one with many that are in this room. But I think the fundamental question I keep coming back to is what do we want recreation to look like, both in the short term, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when my youngest, Dorothy, who's in second grade, is graduating from the high school, what programs is she going to be involved with and proud to be involved with? Those are the things that I want us to be thinking about. And I think that the more that we are able to collaborate, such as this, the Recreation Committee, that we'll be able to determine, does that mean a recreation department for Winthrop that's uniquely theirs? And it reflects the character and the tradition that we've worked for the last 42 years. But also, I do think it warrants, maybe it means exploring opportunities with neighboring communities. Like we've already mentioned, like there's a lot of resources in Wayne. We should be reaching out. We shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. But I do think that there's a lot of opportunities that are untapped, such as looking at childcare. There's not a lot for teens right now. If you graduate your K through 6 program, whether you make your middle school team, and there might be a club, which school employees are already pretty exhausted. That's where the rec comes in. So teen leadership programs, outdoor explorations. I heard a lot of different things tonight, trails included with that. I agree that I would love to see a little bit more with our beach and have a more functioning and safe dock. But looking at outdoor recreation as well in the senior age population. I think those are conversations that are worth having because I think that it also helps us to know how we can be responsible with our resources. And at the end of the day, I believe that this community really does have a lot of potential to achieve, not just saying that these are dreams, these are real things that neighboring communities are striving for right now. It's what I do every day in Monmouth. And I think that once we're in a position to put that out there and advertise and make that something that is a source of pride for this community, it's going to allow Winthrop to be an even more attractive place. People where they want to put down their roots, current residents to stay engaged, volunteer, give back, donate, but they also, for people who are looking at places to live, for schools, recreation, that's the place that they want to call home. And so as somebody who lives here, coaches here, works in recreation every day, I'm committed to help however I can. Like I said before, I care deeply about this town. And I believe that if we continue having these open conversations and really take some of those dream items, put them into workable priorities, and like-minded people are going to be able to do some pretty amazing things here. So thank you for having this forum, and I appreciate the time.
Anybody online at all?
Come on up, sir.
I'll be short and sweet. My name is Bruce Hunt, and I think you were picking on me earlier about old people in the crowd.
I did not say
Oh,
that.
that wasn't you? Okay.
I'm closer to
I
your age
accept
than
it.
I am his age.
I accept it. First of all, thank you for having this forum tonight. I think it's really important to look at our recreation program and try to improve what we have. I think everybody in this room realizes that a lot of people get attracted to this community because of the recreation programs and the sports programs and the other things that this community can provide. So I think that's a really important thing, and I think everybody feels the same way. I hope town council and other people in town realize the bang for the buck that we get for our recreation program. I mean, we really don't spend much money on the recreation program, and what we get for it is, tenfold in return. So I just want to make sure that town council, and I know you're part of that, Aaron, that we realize that it's a great benefit and it's a positive thing. And there are a lot of positive things being said tonight by many people that have been involved with that program. I think the last thing that I want to say is that it will be very difficult to lose Lonnie Steves. He's a legend in town. I think he's a legend in his own mind, but we all are, right? But he has done a terrific job and given opportunities for so many people. You don't have a community that has someone that's been that dedicated. I've been in a lot of different communities that just lives and dies by what we do here in Winthrop and how we do it and do it well. I mean, as someone said, he's everywhere, and he is. So we're going to miss him. And I am concerned about 16 hours a week for someone to do a great job with this. I think we did it a little bit backwards. We're having this forum now. We probably should have had it before we decided on what the position is going to be, what is going to entail as far as duties and so forth, so we know going forward that we're in the right position. So I hope that gets redirected and corrected as we look forward to a new budget and with a committee that sounds like it will make some great recommendations to help this town look even better. So that's my thought. Thank you for having this forum.
So anyone else have any thoughts or questions that they'd like to share? Anyone online? Do you want to make a parting comment?
Well, I've kept notes from everything, talking about. I think I have a pretty good idea of the direction that you guys would like to see. This is going to be an ongoing conversation. It's going to be an ongoing process. All I can beg for is involvement and to, be as involved as you can. And that includes town council meetings, but certainly where recreation comes into play. I know moving forward, my priority will be making sure that we develop a program that is, as self-sustaining as possible, realizing that we need a lot of investment, especially in our infrastructure. So there are costs that will be occurred, but I think, like it's been said before, it's an investment. And when I ran for council, I ran on the idea of making strategic investments, not just, spending the town money on something that was not going to pay dividends. I think this is a huge area where we can make leaps and bounds as far as experiences for families and community members that hopefully would like to stay or come back. I came back, Shannon came back, Renee, I see all these people, and we grew up going through these programs, so we know intimately what you're talking about because we experienced it firsthand. Lonnie was around when I was 5, 6 years old helping out, and I remember lugging baseball helmets to the garage behind his apartment. My dad coached, so we're all very kind of, into wanting to make sure this is a success. So I just ask for a little bit of patience in knowing that we're listening, and don't hesitate to reach out at all. And, keep an eye on the town website, Facebook page, sign up for the alerts. And like I said, as much involvement as we can get from the community will, I think, make the biggest, dent in being able to develop the programming that you guys want. So there's information there. Should take the town yearly report. I'll have, maybe Anthony, we can put a blast out about what the budget looks like currently for the rec department so that you guys can understand kind of where that money comes from and where it's going. And yeah, I mean, and Lonnie is still going to be around. I talked to him, and he's more than willing to help when he can. But again, I don't want to overburden him. He deserves his retirement. He has put a lot of time in. So just keep the communication coming, and I'll try to summarize everything that we heard here tonight and put it back so that way, if anything gets left out, you guys can remind me.
All right. Thanks for coming, everyone.
And this is recorded, so you can watch it again on our YouTube page, which I also recommend.